I woke up choking, my body paralyzed and a dark presence hovering above me. The weight on my chest was real, crushing, as I tried to scream without making a sound. My eyes, the only part of me that could move, caught shapes in the shadows that science cannot explain and that for years I tried to ignore. I never imagined that night of terror would be the beginning of the most frightening revelation of my life. What I witnessed afterward completely changed my understanding of the veil between our worlds and the invisible battle that happens while we sleep. My name is Samuel Owens. I'm 53 years old and a retired pastor from South Africa, although I've served as a missionary in various countries over the last 30 years. I grew up in a traditional Christian family, but what I experienced wasn't in any of the theology books I studied. Before continuing with my testimony, write in the comments where you're watching from. I want to know which countries this account is reaching, because what I'm about to share needs to be heard by people of all nations. I had always been skeptical of extravagant supernatural experiences. I preferred the solidity of Scripture to the excitement of far-fetched testimonies I heard at conferences. I maintained a practical faith rooted in daily prayer and community service. That changed 3 years ago during my mission work in a remote village outside Johannesburg. The locals spoke of night visitors, entities that roamed after sunset. I dismissed these as cultural superstitions, folklore passed down through generations. Yet something about their consistent accounts troubled me. Different people, different ages, all describing the same phenomena with alarming similarity. Their eyes held a knowing fear that my theological training couldn't explain away. One elderly woman grabbed my arm after service, her weathered fingers digging into my skin. "They come for the sleeping ones," she whispered, her accent thick but her message clear. "You don't believe now, but you will see them soon. They know when someone threatens their territory." I smiled politely, patted her hand and walked away. That night, the dreams began. Each night, the dreams became more vivid and consistent. I found myself observing battles in a realm that looked like our world, but wasn't quite the same. Luminous figures clashing with shadowy entities over sleeping forms that I recognized as people from our village. I would wake exhausted, as though I hadn't slept at all. What puzzled me most wasn't the dreams themselves, but how they aligned with sudden changes in our community. Whenever I dreamed of these battles, someone in the village would report a breakthrough or a setback the next day. It was as if I was witnessing the spiritual causes of physical effects, yet I still couldn't bring myself to believe it was more than coincidence. I began documenting these dreams, noting details and corresponding events. The pattern became undeniable. A dream of light overcoming darkness around a certain house would be followed by testimonies of answered prayers from that family. Scenes of shadow penetrating defenses preceded reports of conflict, illness, or temptation. After 3 weeks, my journal contained evidence I could no longer rationalize away. Still, I kept these observations to myself. What would my colleagues think if I started claiming to see spiritual warfare in my sleep? My reputation as a level-headed teacher of Scripture would crumble. So I watched, recorded, and remained silent, torn between empirical evidence and theological caution. The night everything changed, I had stayed late at the small chapel, preparing Sunday's sermon. The electricity had gone out again, a common occurrence, leaving me working by lantern light. I must have dozed off because I woke with a start, aware of something different in the atmosphere. The air felt charged, dense, like the heaviness before a thunderstorm. That's when I saw him, a figure standing in the doorway backlit by moonlight. My first thought was that one of the village elders had come to check on me, but as my eyes adjusted, I realized this was no ordinary visitor. He stood well over 6 feet tall, his posture unnaturally straight. What struck me most were his eyes. They reflected the lantern light like polished silver. "Samuel," he said, my name sounding ancient in his voice. "You've been chosen to witness." No introduction, no explanation of how he knew me, just this statement that sent chills down my spine. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my mouth suddenly dry. "Names have power," he replied. "You may call me Sentinel." He moved into the room without seeming to take steps. "Tonight your eyes will be opened. You've questioned the battles in your dreams. Now you will see them while awake." I wanted to dismiss this as hallucination, a result of too little sleep and too much coffee, but deep down I knew this was real. "Why me?" I asked. "I'm nobody special." "You stand at a threshold," Sentinel said. "Your disbelief creates a gap through which darkness enters. Your influence affects many. What you see or refuse to see ripples outward." He extended his hand. "Come, there isn't much time." Against all rational thought, I took his hand. Instantly, the chapel walls dissolved around us. We were still in the village, but everything looked different. More vibrant, more real somehow. Colors had depth I'd never noticed before. Sounds carried meaning beyond mere noise. "We exist in the same space as your world," Sentinel explained, "but on a different frequency. What you're seeing now is reality without the veil." As we moved through the sleeping village, I witnessed what can only be described as warfare. Around each home, luminous beings stood guard while shadowy entities prowled, looking for entry points. Some homes were surrounded by what looked like walls of light, while others had gaps through which darkness seeped in. "What determines the protection?" I asked, watching a shadow creature test the boundaries around a small hut. "Faith creates foundation," Sentinel replied, "but it's not blind faith that builds these walls, it's lived faith. Choices made in daylight that strengthen defenses at night. Prayer is communication, but action is power." We approached a house I recognized, belonging to a young couple who had recently started attending services. Their protective boundary flickered like a failing light bulb. "Their commitment wavers," Sentinel observed. "Their words speak faith, but their daily choices invite doubt. Watch." A shadow entity found a gap in their protection and slipped inside. Sentinel held me back when I moved to intervene. "You cannot fight with physical hands. This battle requires different weapons." Inside, I saw the entity hover over the sleeping couple, whispering into their ears. I could somehow sense the content: seeds of discord, mistrust, financial worry. "They plant thoughts that will be remembered as the sleeper's own," Sentinel explained. "Day by day, these thoughts grow into actions, then habits, then character." We continued through the village, and I witnessed variations of the same battle around different homes. Some were nearly overrun with shadow entities, while others stood as beacons of light. What shocked me most was seeing some of my most faithful church members' homes with significant gaps in their protection. "Religious performance without heart transformation offers little defense," Sentinel said, answering my unspoken question. "Many speak correct words while harboring bitter hearts." Suddenly, we stood outside my own small house. I expected to see a strong barrier of light given my years of ministry. Instead, I saw a patchwork defense, strong in some areas, dangerously weak in others. "Your intellectual pride," Sentinel pointed to the largest gap, "your dismissal of experiences you don't understand, your hidden judgments of those with different spiritual expressions, these create entry points." As if summoned by his words, 3 particularly large shadow entities approached my home, moving with purpose. "They know you by name, Samuel," Sentinel said. "Your influence makes you a priority target." I watched in horror as they slipped through my defenses, heading straight for where I knew my physical body lay sleeping. In that moment, I understood the weight of every dismissive remark I'd ever made about spiritual warfare, every time I'd reduced someone's experience to psychological suggestion or cultural superstition. "Can I strengthen my defenses?" I asked urgently. "That's why you're seeing this," Sentinel replied. "Knowledge brings responsibility. Awareness is the first step toward change." As we watched, a battle erupted inside my house. Smaller beings of light engaged the shadow entities, driving them back from my sleeping form. The conflict was fierce, tactical, nothing like the chaotic clashing I'd imagined from dramatic sermons. "They've been defending you while you denied their existence," Sentinel said, with what sounded almost like sadness. "Imagine their strength if you acknowledged and partnered with them." Our perspective suddenly shifted upward, as if we were viewing the entire region from above. The individual battles around homes connected to larger strategic movements. Certain areas were under heavy assault, while others served as strongholds of light. "The battle is never just about individuals," Sentinel explained. "Territories are claimed and contested. Households form communities. Communities form regions. Regions form nations." I noticed patterns I hadn't seen before, how spiritual activity concentrated around schools, government buildings, media outlets, and places of worship. "Influence points," Sentinel said, following my gaze. "Where minds are shaped, decisions are made, beliefs are formed." The enormity of what I was witnessing overwhelmed me. This wasn't just about personal spiritual health, it was a coordinated campaign with strategic objectives. And most people, even believers like myself, were completely unaware. "Why show me this now?" I asked. "What am I supposed to do with this knowledge?" "A time of increased activity approaches," Sentinel replied. "Boundaries between realms thin. More will experience what you've dismissed. They will need guides who understand rather than leaders who deny. Before I could ask more questions, Sentinel brought us to the village's central meeting area. Unlike the battle scenes around homes, this space was almost entirely shadowed, with only faint flickers of light struggling to penetrate. "This is the heart of your community, yet it stands nearly undefended," he said. "Shared spaces reflect collective spiritual condition. Individual faith matters, but united purpose creates impenetrable defense." He pointed to distant lights on the horizon, moving toward our village. Reinforcements come, drawn by even small acts of faith and unity. But they respond to invitation, not demand. Sentinel turned to face me directly, his silver eyes now glowing with intensity. 3 nights from now, a coordinated assault begins, not just here, but across regions where light has begun to grow. Your people are unprepared. My mind reeled with implications. What should I tell them? They won't believe me. Some will. Others must see for themselves. Sentinel placed a hand on my shoulder. "You've been given sight as a gift and responsibility. Share what you've witnessed, but understand that knowing brings accountability." His form began to shimmer, becoming more radiant. "Remember this. Night battles reveal what day choices create. Warfare isn't just fought in moments of crisis, but in daily decisions that strengthen or weaken defenses." In an instant I was back in the chapel, slumped over my notes. The lantern had burned low, and dawn light filtered through the windows. I might have dismissed everything as a vivid dream, except for one detail. Clutched in my hand was a feather unlike any I'd seen before, radiating faint light even in the growing daylight. The following Sunday, I changed my planned sermon. Instead of my careful theological exposition, I spoke plainly about what I'd witnessed. Some elders shifted uncomfortably, others leaned forward with recognition in their eyes. I showed them the feather, now kept in a simple wooden box. That afternoon, several village members approached me privately, sharing experiences they'd never dared mention in church: night visitations, battles during sleep, supernatural protection they'd witnessed but feared to discuss. The elderly woman who had warned me nodded knowingly when our eyes met. For 3 days we prepared, not with weapons or barricades, but with prayer, reconciliation, and addressing the gaps Sentinel had shown me. I guided families to strengthen their spiritual boundaries, apologized for my dismissive attitude, and organized prayer watches throughout the night. The night of the predicted assault arrived. Most of the village gathered in homes, praying in shifts as I had instructed. Some still doubted staying away. Around midnight, even the skeptics came running. They reported shadowy figures surrounding their homes, cold spots that moved through rooms, whispers without sources. Some experienced the same sleep paralysis I had known. Those who had prepared saw something different. Flashes of light through windows, feelings of unexpected peace despite the tension, a sense of protective presences moving around their properties. Children spoke of bright people standing guard at their bedroom doors. By morning, testimonies poured in. Chronic health issues suddenly improved. Long-standing family conflicts resolved with unexpected apologies. Addictions lost their grip overnight. The atmosphere over the entire village had shifted perceptibly, but what happened next stunned even me. Reports began coming in from neighboring villages. They too had experienced unusual phenomena that night. Some had seen lights in the sky moving in formation. Others described sudden inspirations to pray at specific times. One pastor called me shaken, describing dreams identical to those I'd been having for weeks. I realized then that what Sentinel had shown me wasn't isolated to our small community. The battle was widespread, and our preparation had created a ripple effect beyond our borders. What I've shared today isn't meant to frighten you, though I understand if it does. It's meant to awaken you to a reality that continues whether we acknowledge it or not. The battles I witnessed that night haven't stopped. They continue in your home, your workplace, your community, while you read these very words. Ask yourself honestly, how strong are your spiritual defenses? What gaps might exist in your protection? The shadow entities I saw target specific weaknesses: unforgiveness, hidden sin, spiritual complacency, broken relationships, areas where faith is professed but not practiced. This isn't about denomination or religious performance. Many with elaborate spiritual routines had weak defenses, while some with simple, authentic faith stood as beacons. The difference wasn't knowledge or religious activity, but heart condition and daily choices aligned with professed beliefs. Since that night, I've helped hundreds identify and close their defensive gaps. The transformation in individuals, families, and eventually our entire community has been remarkable. Conflicts that plagued us for generations have found resolution. Addictions have lost their power. Relationships have healed. I believe my experience was allowed not just for our small village, but as a warning for believers everywhere. The intensity of spiritual warfare is increasing, but so is heaven's response to those who prepare and stand firm. I've noticed something fascinating since that encounter. People who hear this testimony either immediately recognize its truth from their own experiences or find themselves having unusual dreams in the days that follow. It's as if the telling itself thins the veil between worlds. If what I've shared resonates with your spirit, share this video with others who need this understanding. The simple act of passing this knowledge creates ripples in both realms. I've seen it happen repeatedly. Next week, I'll be sharing something even more powerful. What Sentinel revealed about the 3 types of angelic guardians assigned to protect families, and how to recognize when they're actively defending your home. The signs are often mistaken for coincidence, but once you know what to look for, you'll never see your daily life the same way again. What's your experience? Have you sensed this warfare happening around you? Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to understand their own encounters.